there's still Balogun Stadium. There's a BRT bus stop there. It was not in the master plan. But as we were preparing to host the Under-17 World Cup of 2010, it then occurred to us that, wait a minute, the nearest stop to this place was farther away. So we had to create that BRT stop so that we could create a walking distance to the stadium. But what it did for us was to teach us to think ahead. So if you look at the Blue Line station today, it is somewhere between CMS bus stop and the State House in Marina. It was deliberate. We wanted to create the nearest walking distance to Unicon Stadium. And these are just very, very modest beginnings of the kind of integration that we must begin to do. To do this, so many people will be involved. I can think of the Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria. I can think of the National Society of Engineers. I can think of the Architects Registration Council of Nigeria and other people in the built environment. This is why I said it is an all-of-nation commitment. And of course, we must recognize that we must start to modify in the medium term existing facilities as we build new ones, and they must become multi-purpose. They must have places for children, they must have places for spouses who are not interested in sports. There must be places where families can gather, eat breakfast and eat lunch, or buy and take away after the event. This is how you bring people back. It must be a whole family thing. And Amaju Pinnick will know this better than anybody. FIFA is favoring now more community-based stadium. Not those 70,000, 100,000. So in community, so that the ownership 15,000, 20,000, those are the places that they are bidding for a major tournament. Now you can bring those out of town stadium, you are likely to lose. And if we are to bring these people to the arenas, they must feel safe. Not only to come, but as I said, to bring their families, and therefore safety and security is non-negotiable. I have tried to persuade my wife to follow me to the stadium. Once again, she will not. You want to hear what happened? Our first son was barely 1.5 when we hosted, I don't know what year it is, that tournament under 21 that Xavi, Iniesta. So I said, let's go and watch good football. So we carried our little son, parked at Alaka petrol station, walked to the stadium. Everything was fine. Immediately we finished the game and we were strolling as a happy family. We just had bottles breaking, machetes out. So I told my wife, start running. So I grabbed our boy. So anytime I said, go by yourself. Not doing this. So I also speak from some place of experience. Families must feel safe and security must be non-negotiable. If we are going to create a special corps of law enforcement persons to be dedicated to all our sporting centers, so be it. Again, we will require people who have expertise, because large crowds are perfect targets for terrorists. And you don't want to know, those who don't know what it takes to host a Premier League match. The Manchester United game was cancelled Monday because they found a toolkit that was unaccounted for in the bathroom. People had, they had to cancel it because the policemen couldn't certify the stadium as safe. They cancelled the match. Many of us might remember that when the Queen of England died recently, many matches were postponed. You know why? They were planning her funeral. There were so many dignitaries coming in, they didn't have enough policemen to man the centers. And so they postponed a few games. So it's serious. The protocol for securing the stadium on match day, in some places it starts the night before. In some other places it starts as early as 6 a.m. So when we saunter in, some people have come to do their work. The IED experts, everyone. So it's serious business. But again, it's jobs. As we are going on. I say the fifth thing I think we must do, and this I address to the NSC. Alao'S has spoken about this in some of his back page columns, is that we must bring about proper governance. DG, Chairman, governance. Governance. We must develop a clear calendar, regulations that must be enforced, and perhaps develop our own sports arbitration and dispute resolution mechanism on a local basis. And all of this must be of such high integrity and acceptance. I have dealt with 4 things, and the 5th one I have mentioned, which is governance, is perhaps the most challenging of all. Because it depends more than the others on the character of the people who govern the institutions. It's reputational. One bad egg will ruin a lot of things. There must be no room in this space for tardiness, no room for sloppiness or uncertainty. Everybody in the industry must know where they stand at all times. We will probably need new laws by the national and state houses of assembly. The Bar Association will be critical, the Nigerian Bar Association will be critical in this regard in suggesting reforms about laws. The National Sports Commission and the National Institute of Sports will now have to sit down to prepare a national calendar of sports, of how local government and school sports will fit into national sports festival to produce talents for the All-African Games, which will feed into the Commonwealth Games, and which will lead to the Olympics and to the World Cup respectively without clashing. This is hard work. I don't pretend that it is easy. When I was in school, we used to play local government games. I used to play them in the Shomolu local government. Each local government had a festival, but it was choreographed to feed into the national sports and into international sports. And this is important. This is the bedrock of all of what we want to do. I said, for example, that there must be no doubt about when the National Premier League will start, because there will be no room for ad hoc stoppages. I'm glad to note that the league fixtures are out, and that is commendable. And it is these plans that enable corporations, investors, and stakeholders to make investment decisions. Now, the whole of Europe is in summer. And if you look across Europe today, what you will see are young boys, young girls, young men and women traveling from one district to the other, traveling from one country to another in high school cadet sports all over Europe before the winter season started. What is our national plan for the long holiday? Did we put one in place this year? But if this year has been ad hoc, what can we do between now and next July, August of next year? Because this is one good way to keep young people away from crime. The 6th thing I think we should do is for the government at the federal and state and local governments to collaborate in an enabling way. I think the time has come for fiscal and monetary policy tools such as tax credits, imports and custom duties, exemptions and concessions which must be designed to stimulate investment in sports, for construction, for equipment, and for sponsorship. The seventh thing I think we should do is to engage in sports diplomacy. There are places where we can clearly learn from the experience of others. What are the Caribbean nations doing? Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, that are holding all of the medals in the short sprints. Can we have exchange programs? Can we bring some of their trainers here? We have done all of this before. But we need to become deliberate, dedicated, and decisive to go back to the template. Eighth, maybe there is a question in the room that is not yet verbalized. And I guess that question is, where will the money come from? Because there's always money involved. My answer is that we must develop a plan. We must develop programs that can be funded before we start losing sleep about funds. Almost too often, I think that we agonize about funding without paying attention to planning. I believe that if there is a good plan, funding will follow. And I cite the example of the Club 400. Is there anybody in the room who remembers the Club 400? Dominic Opakule. There was a Club 400 in Nigeria, and I'll get there. Because all of what I'm saying, we have done before. But in terms of planning and calendar, I can only refer to our dear neighbors, what we tried to do back then, to create a calendar for school sports from March to June and from July to December. At least we had that up until 2015. Over sports like tennis, table tennis, squash, swimming, Scrabble, the Governor's Lawn Tennis Club, and the climax used to be at Roe Park every December 26th for the Governor's belt for boxing. And I attended as many of them as I could. These events were coordinated by many dedicated men and women. And I use this opportunity to say a big thank you to all of them. There were people like Eni Tonshedi, Wale Edu, late Mr. Ademola Adeniji, Deji Wellington, Kweku Tando, Chief Pius Akiyelure, Wale Olatunjoye, Engineer Folabi Salami, His Royal Majesty Olagbola Olawa Adeniru, Mr. Babatunde Williams, Dr. Nino Adeniji, Mr. Yapopola, so many others who time will not permit me, but through them I say thank you. But why are they important? Because of what they did, plan and organize sports. They revived the interest of old sponsors like Chief Razak Okoya, Molade Okoya Thomas, FCMB, new sponsors came. FCMB, Etisalat, Julius Berger. And so, what is the case? If we make a good plan and we calendarize, corporate sponsors in their budgeting and planning will see what is ahead and they will come. So let me now pivot back to history to demonstrate that what I have laid out as a sketch of the pathway to sports development has been done before. I'm going back to history now. We've done this before. And we can only improve on it. Anybody who is familiar with Nigerian sports will remember the name of Major General Henry Edmond Olufemi Adefogbe. Does that name ring a bell? Yes. Those in favor say aye. Some people are too young to remember that name. A few years ago, a posthumous biography of him was published, and I asked for and got a copy, although I could not attend the event because of pressure of work. The book is a treasure trove of how sports was used to unify Nigeria post-war and how it became a driver of national prestige and development. So when I was writing this piece, I didn't remember that book. I had not read it at the time, interestingly, so I went and grabbed it. And I just said, there must be something about sports. And it was Alao'S sports, it was the euphemism. And lo and behold, when I opened chapter 7, it was sports. So I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just going to read from some of the excerpts. Interestingly, that was when I realized that Chief Anthony Enaho was not just Commissioner for Information and Culture. He was a commissioner oversighting sports. Because at that time, there was no sports ministry, just like today. At that time, Diko was Alao'S. Today, Alao'S is Diko. So, let me just read some of them. And this is Chief Enaho inaugurating the Sports Commission. When Major General Henry Alao'S was appointed as head of Nigerian Sports Council, he started as Sports Council in 1967. The body was not more than a mere appendage of the government sector. But as time went on, his role was expanded under a new name known as the National Sports Commission, which was inaugurated in the early 1970s. The National Sports Council was reorganized in 1971 under Decree number 34 of the federal government to be known as the National Sports Commission as a way of putting together formidable machinery for the hosting of the second All-Africa Games and for the continuous development of the country's sports in the future. They are just about building the national stadium. They built that stadium in 1 year. The Federal Commissioner for Information and Labour, with special responsibility for sports, Chief Enaho, announced this officially during a press conference on the 14th of August. According to him, quote, a 53-member National Sports Commission body has been established by the federal government to encourage and develop sports and games throughout Nigeria. Chief Enaho himself was a good sportsman who used to play cricket during his days as King's College, Lagos. The following are excerpts from the text of Enaho's speech while inaugurating the National Sports Commission. Quote, Mr. Chairman and members of the National Sports Commission, Your Excellencies and distinguished guests, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you here on this historic occasion of the inauguration of the National Sports Commission, which I, Enaho, hope will open up a new chapter in the annals of sports in this country. I am particularly delighted to welcome you. Since then, and it goes on, it will be true that the country's expectations have not been realized for various reasons. As I have had occasions to say elsewhere, the reasons include unsatisfactory, blah, 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 and this is not important. Says, Mr. Chairman, we all know the state of affairs in sports in Nigeria, and I will not bore you with a catalogue of disappointments, or failures, or shortcomings. Does that resonate like today? But he then said, back then, that's why I said we've done it before. He said, it is sufficient to say that in recognition of the need to remedy the situation and in pursuit of the nation's ardent desires, the federal government has decided to establish a coordinating body vested with sufficient powers to give central direction to ensure effectiveness in planning and organizing sports and sports facilities throughout the country. Given this background of this need and desire, what are your functions and what does the nation expect of you? Your functions are accordingly set out in Section 3 of Decree 34, under which this commission is established. They are 1, to encourage the development and organization and participation of sports in Nigeria. This was the federal government now speaking. You see, I said we've done it before.